Sarah had always prided herself on noticing details. It was why her flower shop thrived. She remembered every customer's favorite bouquet, the exact shade of ribbon they preferred. But lately, her attention had shifted to the subtle changes in her husband, Mark. The late-night work calls that left his phone buzzing face down on the nightstand. The new cologne that smelled like a department store sample, not his usual woodsy scent. And the gym membership he'd sworn he'd never need, yet suddenly used twice a day. One rainy Tuesday, while sorting laundry, she found a crumpled receipt in his jeans pocket, a $300 dinner at La Belle, a romantic waterfront spot they'd never visited. The date stamped was a Thursday, the same night he'd claimed to be stuck at the office. Her hands didn't shake. She didn't cry. Instead, she snapped a photo of the receipt and tucked it back where she'd found it. That night, as Mark scrolled through his phone, laughing at a text he refused to share, Sarah quietly opened their shared laptop. His email was still logged in. There it was, a confirmation for 2 first-class tickets to Bali, a luxury villa reservation, a couple's spa package, all booked under his name, and a guest listed only as M. Guest. Sarah's stomach tightened, but her mind raced faster. She remembered the joint credit card they rarely used, the one he'd insisted on keeping for emergencies. Clicking through their bank app, she saw the Bali charges, $8,000 labeled work retreat. The next morning, while Mark bragged about his big presentation in Bali, Sarah smiled and packed his suitcase, slipping a GPS tracker into the lining, a gift from her paranoid brother last Christmas. She kissed him goodbye, then waited. By noon, she'd drained the joint account, moving every penny to a new one he'd never access. She canceled the villa, citing a family emergency, and emailed the airline to report stolen card details. The tickets were voided within minutes. That evening, as Mark texted, "Flight delayed, stuck at the airport, love you." Sarah sipped her tea, staring at the real-time GPS dot blinking at the airport. Her phone buzzed again. An unknown number had texted Mark. "Where are you?" "The airline says our tickets are fake." Sarah saved the number under M. Guest, then blocked it. She scrolled through Mark's Instagram, pausing at a photo he'd liked hours ago, a pouty selfie from Melissa, his new assistant, captioned "Beach vibes soon." Sarah's lips curved into a cold smile. Bali wasn't the only surprise she'd planned. Mark's flight delay turned into a 12-hour nightmare. The GPS tracker showed him pacing Terminal B, while Melissa's Instagram story updated with frantic clips of airport chairs and an empty Starbucks cup. "Travel tip, never trust a man who books surprise trips," she captioned one, her smile strained. Sarah watched it all from her living room, her tea gone cold. By midnight, Mark's text turned desperate. "Our tickets got canceled, some glitch. Can you check the credit card?" Sarah waited an hour before replying. "So strange. The bank called about fraud. I told them it wasn't you." She attached a screenshot of the $8,000 Bali charge, adding, "Must be a mistake, right?" His typing bubbles popped up, then vanished. The next morning, Sarah's lawyer sent a crisp email. "Ready to file." But Sarah hesitated. She scrolled through Melissa's public TikTok, where a video from 3 a.m. showed Mark arguing with a hotel clerk in the airport lobby, his shirt wrinkled. "Sir, your card's declined," the clerk said loudly as Melissa filmed sideways. The video ended with Mark snapping, "Delete that!" before the screen went black. Sarah saved the video, then sent it to the HR director at Mark's company with a polite note. Concerned about misuse of company travel funds. By noon, Mark's boss called. Sarah let it ring, already knowing what he'd say. Instead, she focused on the flower shop, arranging lilies while her regulars gossiped about some idiot who tried to expense a Bali trip as a work retreat. She nodded sympathetically, her phone buzzing nonstop. Mark's number, Melissa's number, even his mother's. That evening, Sarah finally answered. "What did you do?" Mark shouted. "My job's on the line. The bank's freezing everything." "Oh no," Sarah cut in, her voice sweet. "Did your work trip not go well?" Silence. Then a muffled sob, Melissa yelling in the background, "I'm not paying for this motel." Sarah hung up and opened her laptop. In a local Facebook group, someone had posted Melissa's airport TikTok. Comments flooded in. That's Linda's son-in-law. Who's the girl? His daughter. Sarah refreshed the page, watching the shares climb. She closed the tab, poured a glass of wine, and drafted an email to her lawyer. File everything. As she clicked send, her phone lit up with a notification. Melissa had unfollowed Mark on Instagram. Sarah chuckled. One down. The divorce papers hit Mark's inbox while he was arguing with Melissa in the motel parking lot. His phone buzzed. Urgent, legal notice, as she threw her suitcase into a rideshare. I'm done cleaning up your messes, she spat, leaving him clutching his phone under flickering streetlights. Sarah's lawyer had timed it perfectly. By morning, the motel manager evicted Mark for non-payment. He showed up at Sarah's flower shop unshaven and wild-eyed, demanding to talk like adults. She let him stand in the rain while she served customers, her voice steady as she explained the difference between peonies and ranunculuses. Finally, she handed him a folder. Inside, screenshots of his text to Melissa, the viral TikTok, and a court order freezing his remaining accounts. You've got 24 hours to return the money you stole, she said, or the judge adds theft to your fraud charges. Mark spluttered, You'll regret this. But Sarah just nodded to her new security guard, a retired cop who watered the lilies with a glare. As Mark slunk away, her phone buzzed. A local news outlet wanted to interview her about entrepreneurship after adversity. She agreed, but only if they filmed in front of the Bali Villa's cancellation receipt framed on her office wall. That night, Sarah's inbox exploded. Mark's mother had sent a tearful apology. He's been lying to us all. Melissa's TikTok confession, I didn't know he was married, trended with the hashtag #DumpHimChallenge. Even the flower shop's Instagram gained thousands of followers, fans flooding comments with heart emojis and Queen. But Sarah's favorite email came at midnight. The HR director fired Mark, citing gross misconduct and demanding repayment of the work retreat funds. She forwarded it to her lawyer, then opened Mark's Venmo, where he'd just requested $200 for emergency motel fees. She declined, typing Ask M Guest in the memo. As she locked up the shop, Sarah noticed a bouquet request from Melissa. The note read, Sorry. P.S. Check his gym locker. Under recipient, Melissa had listed the address for Mark's parents' house. Sarah smiled, arranging thorn-free roses. Some surprises were worth delivering in person. Sarah followed Melissa's tip the next morning. At Mark's gym, the manager recognized her from the news and let her into his locker. Inside, she found a locked safe. The kind Mark had once joked was for secret treasure. She guessed the code, Melissa's birthday. The door clicked open, stacks of cash, a burner phone, and a velvet box holding earrings, diamonds, just like the receipt she'd found months ago. Sarah snapped photos, her hands steady. The burner phone buzzed, a text from an unsaved number. Miss you. When's the next trip? Scrolling up, she found selfies of another woman, dates overlapping with Melissa. Sarah almost pitied him. He'd gotten sloppy. She handed everything to her lawyer. By afternoon, the judge added hidden assets to Mark's charges. His parents, horrified, wired the stolen money back, begging Sarah to avoid more scandal. She donated half to a women's shelter, keeping the rest for her second flower shop, the lease signed that same day. Mark showed up again, this time at her new store's construction site. You ruined my life, he slurred, reeking of cheap whiskey. Before Sarah could speak, her security guard stepped forward, phone recording. Want to add trespassing to your list? Mark fled, but not before the video hit local Facebook groups. Comments roasted his stained shirt and shaky threats. That night, Sarah received an anonymous package, Melissa's keycard from Mark's office. Attached was a note. Check the supply closet. Inside, Sarah's lawyer found expired contracts Mark had forged to embezzle company funds. The police arrived at his parents' house at dawn. As the cuffs clicked, Mark screamed, "This is all her fault." But the officers didn't care. Sarah watched the body cam footage online while designing her new shop's logo, a lotus rising from murky water. Her phone buzzed. Melissa had sent a final text. He called me Sarah once. Guess we both won. Sarah blocked the number, then ordered extra roses for the grand opening. Some stories didn't need sequels. The grand opening of Sarah's second flower shop was packed. News vans lined the street, and customers spilled onto the sidewalk, clutching bouquets and snapping selfies with the Lotus and Lilies sign. Inside, Sarah adjusted the framed Bali receipt on the wall, now flanked by her divorce decree and a copy of the police report. A reporter asked how it felt to rebuild after betrayal. "Like pruning dead branches," she said. "It hurts, but what grows back is stronger." Across town, Mark sat in a courtroom, his oversized suit borrowed from his father. The judge sentenced him to community service and restitution, his hidden assets and forged contracts leaving no room for pity. His parents stared at the floor, their silence louder than the gavel. Afterward, a blogger filmed him shuffling to a bus stop, muttering about starting over. The clip went viral with the caption, "Midlife crisis versus karma, who won?" Sarah didn't attend the hearing. Instead, she hosted a workshop at her original shop, Financial Literacy for Fresh Starts. Halfway through, a delivery arrived. A massive orchid arrangement from Melissa. The card read, "Enrolling in business school. Thanks for the lesson." Sarah added it to the display, thorn-free and thriving. That night, as she locked up, a familiar figure lingered outside. Mark, unshaven and hollow-eyed, holding a single wilted rose. I wanted to apologize," he mumbled. Sarah said nothing, her security guard a shadow behind her. "I lost everything," he choked out. Sarah tilted her head. "Number you threw it away." She nodded to the guard who stepped forward, phone recording. Mark backed away, the rose crumbling in his grip. The next morning, the shop's social media posted a time-lapse video, the wilted rose in a compost bin transforming into rich soil for new blooms. The caption, "Some endings make better beginnings." By noon, Sarah's inbox had a new request. A Bali resort offering her a floral design residency. She booked a one-way ticket, leaving her shops in trusted hands. As the plane lifted off, she opened Mark's final email, a plea for money. She hit delete, then watched the clouds part, sunlight glinting off the ocean below. Somewhere, a compost bin full of dead roses fed a garden. Somewhere else, a man stared at an empty inbox. And high above it all, Sarah smiled, her seatbelt sign off, the future wide open. Sarah's Bali residency bloomed like the orchids she arranged for luxury beach weddings. Her days were spent sketching designs in the shade of palm trees, her nights filled with the sound of waves, not buzzing phones. The resort's owner, a sharp-eyed woman who'd followed Sarah's story online, offered her a permanent partnership. "Women like us," she said, "grow better in fresh soil." Sarah signed the contract with lavender ink, her initials looping like vines. Back home, Mark's community service, picking trash along highways, left him sunburned and bitter. He'd tried messaging Melissa, but her profile now listed a business degree and a boyfriend her age. His parents sold their home to repay his debts, moving into a cramped apartment. When Mark begged to join them, his father mailed him a bus ticket, one way to a job at his cousin's auto shop. The night before departure, Mark drunkenly texted Sarah, "You win." She blocked him without reading it. Melissa, meanwhile, tagged Sarah in a LinkedIn post, a graduation photo captioned, "New beginnings, thanks to tough teachers." Sarah sent her a bouquet of white lilies, the card blank. Some apologies needed no words. One evening, as Sarah arranged frangipani for a sunset wedding, her phone buzzed. A customer had sent a photo of her first flower shop's display window. Framed by roses was the compost bin video, still playing on loop. The wilted rose morphing into soil, then sprouting new blooms. The caption read, "Your story helped me leave my mark." Sarah saved the photo, then walked to the beach. She tossed a single frangipani into the tide, watching it float toward the horizon. Somewhere, a man in a grease-stained uniform stared at a broken-down car. Somewhere, a student practiced floral arrangements in a tiny apartment. And here, under a sky streaked with gold and violet, Sarah Harrison, once a betrayed wife, now a woman who'd rewritten her roots, inhaled the salt air and smiled. The end.